Good evening, everybody. We are live with Mussar Mondays. The topic tonight is going to be love and rebuke. And we're going to have our class, and after class we're going to talk about way number 28 for the Omer. So, in the topic of love and rebuke, when you talk about love and rebuke, the first thing you need to understand is the verse and commandment written in the Torah. The Torah says in Vayikra, in Leviticus 19, I believe it's verse 25, Hocheach tochiach et amitecha. Can you give me one of the bluestone chumashim? All right, Hocheach tochiach et amitecha. Thank you, sir. And that is a commandment in the Torah as follows. Okay, verse number 17, I apologize. Okay, it says, Lo tisna et achicha b'lvavecha, you should not hate your brother in your heart. Hocheach tochiach et amitecha, you shall reprove your fellow. V'lo tisa alav chet, and do not bear a sin because of him. Okay, so if you can tell, there's a certain theme to this verse. And the theme is as follows. Don't hate your fellow in your heart. Meaning, if you see a flaw in your fellow, don't hate him because of it. Right? Don't hate them. Or, by the way, if you have a disliking to someone because of something that they've done, you're not allowed to hold it in. You're not allowed to hate your fellow, your brother in your heart. Right? If you hate him in the open. Right? But the idea is, it's not to hate him in the open, but the idea is that there has to be, give them an opportunity to explain themselves, give them an opportunity to talk about it, give them an opportunity to learn and change. That's also a possibility. But just to hate someone, that's against the Torah. Now, if we're talking about not to hate someone in your heart, what happens when someone does something wrong? Your mitzvah, your obligation is to tell them about their wrong that they're doing. So if someone does something which is inappropriate, your job as a friend, as a brother, as the verse is talking about, is to reprimand them. Okay. Now let's talk about the Talmud that we've mentioned so many times. The Talmud says that just as there's a mitzvah to reprimand someone whom you know will accept what you're saying, who will accept your criticism, so too there's a mitzvah not to reprimand, not to reprove someone whom you know will not accept. It makes a lot of sense. But why would the Talmud say that? Right? And what's the question that everyone asks?
How are you supposed to know?
How am I supposed to know? How am I to know if someone's going to accept my reproof?
If you don't know, you don't do it.
Right. So the first thing is like this.
You can ask.
Our job is not to be Mr. Criticism and criticize every person we see. Right? We don't just walk over to people and randomly criticize them. Right? It's not Israel. In Israel, everyone in the supermarket will try to... Everybody in the supermarket will try to teach you how to educate your children. Everyone will show you exactly what to buy and when to buy and where to go and how to go. And everyone becomes the midwife, and everyone tells you how to pick out. You didn't ask anybody's opinion, so everyone's giving you opinion. That's because everyone loves like a brother. And if it was their brother, they would do the same. Right? Most of the cases. Not all the cases. But we have a mitzvah that if you see someone doing wrong, it's a mitzvah to bring it to their attention. Okay? It's an important thing to know. It's an important mitzvah. If you see someone doing something that they shouldn't be doing, you have an obligation to walk over to them and find the proper way to communicate that wrongdoing to them. For what purpose? For what purpose?
To make them better.
To help them. Okay, to help them. What happens? Think of most of the instances of criticism you've ever witnessed in your life. It's not that I want to make you better. It just bothers me.
Right.
Right? It bothers me to see you do this. It bothers me to see you do that. It's right. It's all of these different things that bother me. So I'm going to lash out and tell everybody how wrong they are. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't park like that. You shouldn't drive like that. You shouldn't talk like that. You shouldn't act like that. You shouldn't write. Everybody has criticism for everybody else.
Look at me for.
But the real question is,
Come on.
the real question is it really for us? No. It's for the person that we're trying to help. We're trying to help someone else. So let's, with that understanding, we must change the attitude towards criticism. Criticism, when we give criticism, the way you need to do this, and we spoke about this a little bit on Thursday night at our in-depth 48 ways, we talk about listening, about how to listen properly, right? And how to be a good listener. So in that discussion, we spoke about how to give criticism and how to accept criticism. So the first thing is like this. A person should never say, why should I get involved? It's not my business. You guys have your problems and finished. Live with your problems. It's not my business. Right? So it says that a person should not run away from means like this. Think about it like this. If you know that someone is going to do a crime, for example, they're about to do a crime, they're ready to rob a bank, right? Shouldn't you walk over and tell them, I really don't think it's a good idea. It's a friend of yours, I don't think you should cheat like that in your business deal. I don't think you should be talking like that. I don't think you should be acting like that towards your wife. I don't think you should be talking to your children like that. Now, that's what you want to say. The question is how to say it. So the verse says in Proverbs, "Lamochichim yin'am." Critique needs to be spoken pleasantly. It needs to be delivered pleasantly. You can't criticize someone with harshness. It must be done with a pleasantness. So like this. So you have someone, Joe is doing something wrong. Right? If you love Joe and you care about them, like the verse says, like a brother, then what do? You have to make sure that you're doing it for their benefit. You're not doing it for yourself. You're not doing it because you're angry and you want to get back at them. I'm going to show him I'm better than him because I don't get into such problems. Right? But him, because he's a lowlife, that's why he's getting into those problems. No. Right? You have to do it for their benefit. It has to be private, because if you embarrass someone in public, if you embarrass someone in public, water please. Then you're spilling their blood.
It's a death penalty, baby.
Right? So a person must make sure that if they are criticizing, they're criticizing for the person who's the recipient's benefit, number one. Number two is that they're not going to embarrass them. Right? Two very, very critical points.
Rabbi,
Number two,
show me what you would say.
oh, 1 second. Number three is that it has to be, it has to be for their benefit. We can't embarrass them, and it has to be pleasant. Okay, so let me give you an example, because you asked. I'll give you an example of how to criticize someone. Okay, so the first technique that needs to be used is the tone of voice. You can't use an aggressive tone of voice and expect positive results, right? Right? That's not going to work. So how do you do it? First is your tone of voice has to be pleasant, right? Get into a conversation. You say, something? I know you as a person who loves to grow and change and become a better person. Is that true? They'll say, yeah, of course. You don't want to say, no, I want to stay obnoxious, right? No one says that, right? So, of course, they want to become a better person. So, you know what? If I had a piece of criticism for you, because I care about you and I love you, and I think it's important for you because we all have blind spots, and I wish you would share such information with me if you saw that. Would you like me to share it with you? And that way, and 99.9% of the time, it will open up an accepting recipient. Not always. Okay? Now, a person, I think like this. I heard this in the name of a great Mussar master and a great marriage therapist who says that a husband should not criticize his wife for the first, 3 or 4 years of marriage. Shouldn't criticize. You have to be very creative in how to get around that, right? But Alexa, you just got married a few months ago, so you got a long time to go, right? No criticizing, right? So a person has to be very, very careful. Why? Because in a relationship of a marriage, right, a woman can be sensitive, fragile. Sometimes it's not only 3, 4 years, sometimes it can be 10, 20 years. You have to know your spouse well enough to know that they're ready to accept it. And that because otherwise, there's no benefit, keep your mouth shut.
But after 3 years, she's going to think she's perfect, and whenever
That's fine. Nothing wrong ever happened with a woman who felt good about herself. Okay? A woman should feel good about herself, especially by her husband.
What about the other
But she
way
may think
around?
she's
What's
perfect,
that?
and she's not.
The other way
I knew
around,
that
how
was
long
coming.
should a wife wait before she criticizes her?
20 minutes.
20. Oh,
What?
why?
What was the question?
He said, how long should a wife wait before she criticizes her husband?
After they get married?
Yeah, and why
After
is
marriage?
that? And why-
20 minutes?
Max.
Wow.
and what's the rationale?
The rationale is that a woman's job is to help her husband become perfect.
And what's a husband's job?
To be as loving and giving to his wife as possible.
Because she's really pretty much already together.
Because we have different roles. I'm sure there might be some people out there who are watching this now or will watch this later who will say I'm a chauvinist. Well, they're wrong. They're wrong. I'm not a chauvinist. On the contrary, I follow what the Torah says. God is not a chauvinist. And God says that women are on a pedestal. And that women have a lot less mitzvahs they're obligated to, not because women are lower in their misunderstanding, but rather because women are higher. Right? So women aren't obligated to the same mitzvahs as men are, because they are already at a pre-installed higher state spiritually.
Sure.
So a man comes here to perfect himself. A woman was created to be man's helper in that.
That's right.
All right. So so we have to man up and be mature about it. Yes, we're here and we're not perfect, and our wives are with that responsibility to assist their spouse in becoming the best person they can be. So if a wife is not going to criticize her husband for 3 or 4 years, now again, it has to be done in a proper way, and it should be done in a way that's thoughtful and a way that's helpful. But if she's just going to slam him every time, it may not bring about the most loving and endearing relationship, and may result in some unwanted friction. Yes.
Seems like that puts a lot of pressure on the wife,
Why?
because she's held to a much higher standard.
Why?
Well, that's what you said.
No, they are on a higher level. They are on a higher playing field already. It's
Yeah,
not
but-
something new.
But there's always an exception to the rule.
What's the exception?
Well, I mean, there's always the exception proves the rule. The exception tests the rule. There's always an exception.
So in this case, what do you say is the exception?
There's always some woman that
Oh, I'm sure there's an
doesn't
exception
fit
to
the
the...
mold.
Look, every woman is unique and every man is unique, and every relationship that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Almighty, brings together is unique as well. So yeah, just a quick side note. Someone I know very well told me that he was concerned. I met him at some conference, and he told me he was concerned. He had just read a report, I believe it was the New York Times, that most men who get married a second marriage end up with the same exact marriage problems as their first marriage.
True for women too.
Well,
That could very well be, yeah.
most likely, right. But he was talking about for men because he had
But not-
recently
not
been
the
divorced.
third- not the third.
So he asked me why. He says, I'm terrified. I want to get married again, right? But I don't want the same problems I had in my first marriage. I said, do you know the problem? The problem is that you haven't changed. And if you don't change, your problems don't change. Right? So yeah, when you have a wife, your wife's job is to bring you to perfection. Guess what? She's going to touch that same delicate spot, right? To help improve it.
Yeah.
Right? You have a broken hand. Guess what? Every doctor that you're going to go see is going to move it. It's like, you're going to run. Why are you hurting me? I'm trying to fix it. You're going to go to another doctor who's going to do the exact same thing. Right? You understand? So yeah, unless you fix the problem, it's not going to go away. Okay? So I had that experience today because I went to a orthopedic surgeon with my wrist, and he pushed one spot, and he's like, "Yeah, I need to see you tomorrow at the office." So anybody who knows anything about medicine for the hands would probably touch me in the same exact spot, and I would jump through the roof like I did earlier, right? That's the reality. So unless I get it fixed, nothing's going to change. So yeah, this man has a certain deficiency that they are getting married for them to reach that perfection and that deficiency. And guess what? Whoever he's going to be married to is going to point out that same exact issue. It's not, you can't run away from your problems. Us as a universe, as a culture, as a community, our responsibility is to take care of one another. So if I see a flaw in someone that is hampering their ability to grow spiritually, that is hampering their ability to have a decent relationship, that is hampering their ability to keep a job, whatever it is, my job as someone who loves them and cares for them is to follow that mitzvah, go and bring it to their attention in a loving and kind way, so that you can help them. So you can help them. Yes?
Are you saying that a man should do the same thing for his wife, but just not do it nearly as much?
I say that for the first couple of years of marriage, criticism should be off the table from a man to his wife.
Okay, so after 4 years, then what? Is it about the same?
You'll realize that she's perfect, hopefully.
See, that's not,
I know, I'm just messing with you.
no, I mean.
But hopefully you'll get to
we
a
all-
point.
We all have, growing pains. I mean.
True.
Including women.
And
So
and
what's the
every
deal?
every healthy relationship will have that. Will have those growing pains. But you realize that the problem is that most of the times that I get approached with marriage questions, it's like team husband, team wife, right? And they're opposing teams. That's not the way marriage should be. It shouldn't be team husband, team wife. It should be team marriage, right? Now, there are some issues. Okay, great. So we'll resolve the issues, but we're team marriage. We're team love. We're team happiness. We're team unity. It shouldn't be one team against the other team. That's not the way it works. That's not the way a healthy relationship. So now, if the relationship is built on that team unity, then great. So now it's not, oh, well, she criticized me, I have to get her back one now. That's not the way it should work. It's like, no, we're elevating this relationship to a whole new level. Right? You agree?
I got a question. What if you embarrass somebody by criticizing them in the open in front of people?
So there you have to be very, very careful. It's equivalent. Criticizing someone in public is the equivalent of murder.
Like a martyr, yeah.
And we have to be so abundantly careful
Absolutely.
not
That's
to.
worse than
Yeah, don't criticize them. Don't criticize them if you're going to criticize them in public and embarrass them. 100%.
That includes on the internet.
That includes everywhere. I don't understand the media. I don't understand who gives them the right to murder people
Yeah,
on a regular
sure.
basis.
Oh, it's
And
crazy.
just because we title it comedy doesn't make it permissible to slice people up, slice them and dice them, and because it's comedy.
Well, if you know that who's doing it and you know that he's doing parody, then I don't think it's as vicious as...
You know what? We all know that there's a way to do parody that's not belittling, and there's a parody that's not dehumanizing someone.
I mean, if you listen to our great Jewish comedians,
Right.
Robin Williams and Don Rickles, their whole life was parody of making...
Right, but you know what?
of
I
it,
think
you know,
the
making fun
real
of
the
other
real
people.
danger, and we spoke about this in way number
I mean, Don Rickles.
way number 21.
Don Rickles was able to do it, everybody liked Don Rickles.
Right,
He was
right,
the
but you know
funniest
what?
thing. He was
But
the funniest
we
person.
have to be
He
so
really
careful
was.
of laughter. Laughter is a very, very powerful tool,
Well,
and we have to be extremely careful that it doesn't come on the account of someone else. You can laugh about other things. You don't have to laugh about
Well, if you
human
don't make
beings.
fun of, let's say you don't make fun of their physical, and you don't make fun of their...
But
you're maybe
it's inevitable
joking
that
at them.
But
and-
what's left?
it's
Is there
inevitable that
physical
they're
or is it
laughing on
behavior?
someone else's account, and that's dangerous. It's dangerous to laugh at someone else's account.
Yeah,
well, he's not making fun of individuals, he's usually making fun of groups. You know, Italians.
Right. So again,
What about Robin Williams? He did
all right.
the
So
same
I want to share with you a story
I
about.
mean, there's a big difference between Don Rickles and Stephen Colbert.
All right, so I would like to share a story.
Colbert's
I'd like to
still-
share a story about the Chavetz Chaim. The Chavetz Chaim heard that there was a steel factory that was open on Shabbos near his town that he lived in. So he had sent a couple of the leaders of the community to go encourage this Jewish owner of the steel factory to close his shop on Shabbos. So they went and they were talking to the guy, and they're trying to persuade him to keep his steel shop closed. And he gets into a whole explanation of how how hot the fire needs to be to melt the steel, to be able to cut it. And he's going back and forth till it gets to that temperature. It can take 3 days. And he's going on and on and on, all about they come back to the Chavetz Chaim, and they tell the Chavetz Chaim, he said no, he sent us out. He said goodbye, get out of here. It takes us 3 days till he's able to turn on the fire, till it gets to the temperature that he needs. He's going to miss half a week of work, and they're going back and forth telling the whole story that this steel manufacturer was saying. So the Chavetz Chaim saddles up his horse and buggy, and he treks out to the steel factory, and he goes to talk to the owner of the steel factory. And as you can imagine, the owner of the steel factory had made the commitment to the Chavetz Chaim that he's no longer going to keep his shop open on Shabbos. So when he came back, the students of the Chavetz Chaim said, "What did you tell him? Like, how did you persuade him? Like, he said that the 3 days it's going to take till the fire gets hot. The whole story." Chavetz Chaim says, "Listen, I don't know anything about steel. I don't know anything about the fire that it takes to burn the steel. But I do know that he's my brother, and I do know about Shabbos. So all I spoke to him about was about how precious he is as my brother, and how precious Shabbos is. Let him figure out how he's going to make it work. It's not my business how he makes it work, right? My job, and instead, because he expressed that love for his fellow Jew, and he expressed Shabbos, the importance of Shabbos, didn't need any extra, persuasion. That's it. He says, I came to talk about Shabbos, and I came for him to know how much I love him as a brother. All right. So yeah, we can try to persuade, we can try to do things. That's the real way criticism is or I don't know if it's rebuke, but helping someone reach their perfection, helping someone else reach their perfection. If you don't criticize, you are held accountable for their errors. You are held responsible. So imagine this: if you see someone making a mistake, someone doing something unjustly, someone doing something, I'll give you an example. Okay. My dear brother, we were once having this conversation, and he brought up something about the way I was interacting with one of my children. And it opened up an entire perspective that I didn't see. It totally changed. It was just a little glimpse from his perspective of how unique and special this child was, and it opened up an entire new universe of how I was going to approach this child's education. Right? He was loving. He was, we're brothers. We're really like blood brothers, right? And he cares. So it was a loving conversation, and I thanked him immediately for bringing it to my attention. Right? That's the way it needs to be done. Right? Now, what's if, God forbid, he didn't, and I made a big mistake, and he just kept his mouth shut? He could have said something, and he kept his mouth shut.
Right.
And potentially, big damage could have happened to a child. So you see the importance of giving criticism and doing it properly is pretty serious. Yes, David?
Does the messenger mean anything too?
No. So we said very clearly,
No?
it's not the messenger, it's the message.
I mean, you could get a message from somebody that...
But again, if someone respects you and they look up to you, right? So then, it's very important because the messenger means a lot, right? But as a recipient, you have to make sure that you're a good messenger as well, because most people won't know that.
Well, I mean, you would take more criticism or constructive criticism from a brother than you would from Joe Schmo down the block, wouldn't you?
Sometimes. There are plenty of siblings who have a serious rivalry. Anything their sibling says, they don't want to know anything about it.
Really?
Right? You know people like that.
It's a very delicate situation.
It is very
doing
delicate,
this,
yeah.
because
And
some
sometimes,
people have so much arrogance that they can't take
or
criticism.
it's not arrogant.
you know.
Sometimes they're very delicate. They're very self-conscious. They think that I'm not a good parent. They think I'm not a good spouse. Who do you think you are to criticize? Right? Again, it has to be done in such a loving way. And again, you have to think in advance. Before you open your mouth, you have to say to yourself, is this for me or is this for them? Yes.
Okay, you're concentrating on the giver of the
Correct.
criticism. I think it's just as important that the
We're going to
receiver-
talk about it later. If we have time, we're going to get to being the recipient of criticism.
Because, that's really, in my opinion, that's really the key, because you can't control how this person
100%. 100%.
criticizes you. So,
Okay.
I think we should have, like Susan said, the humility, to
100%.
not take ourselves so seriously,
Now, mhm.
and to realize that we need to improve, and to assume that the person is trying to help you out.
Correct. All of those are correct.
Even
Okay,
if
but we're going to talk about being the recipient. Hopefully we'll get to it this week. If we don't, then we'll continue it next week. Okay, here is a classic example of criticism and the power of criticism. I've mentioned this example many times before, but I think it's worthwhile repeating this. So we know that Jacob, when he was on his deathbed, gathered together the tribes, and he gave each of the tribes a blessing. But to Shimon and Levi, the two brothers that took apart the city of Nablus, of Shechem, what happened? He criticized them pretty sharply. And our sages say, how's that fair? How is it fair that the other 10 brothers get these blessings of sorts, and here these two brothers get torn apart? Right? Their what does he say? Their ways, the way of arms, all they know is fighting. Right? It's like klechamas mechoroseim. Right? They deal with fighting, with battles, with wars. It's like, right? It's a very forceful, retribution that they get from their father. The other brothers get blessings. So how is it and why is it? So my grandfather, of blessed memory, said that when you criticize someone, it's the greatest blessing you can give them. The greatest blessing of them all was the blessing that Jacob gave to Shimon and Levi. Why? So think about it like this. This is my explanation. I hope I'm correct. Okay, what is a blessing? A blessing is you're sending in a letter of recommendation to God. Okay, so I say, God bless David. He should be successful in his business. Right? Amen. Right? Amen?
Amen.
Amen. Okay. So now I gave a blessing. Is he going to be successful? Just because I gave a blessing? Maybe, maybe not.
Maybe not.
I gave that recommendation up to heaven with all of my heart, and now hopefully it'll come to fruition. Do we know that it's going to happen? We have no idea. Okay? But when you give someone retribution, when you give someone criticism with your heart, you know what you just did? You gave them all those tools they need to be empowered and become a better person.
It's true.
That's the greatest blessing in the world you can give someone, is give them loving criticism, loving rebuke. Not for yourself. Again, you have to work on yourself, that there shouldn't be any hatred, there shouldn't be this shouldn't be as a retribution for something. I'm getting back at you, I'm going to give you a piece of criticism, I'm going to tell you what you're worth, right? That's not what it's about. It's about, I really, really love this person and I care about them a lot, and you think about how you're going to deliver that message. How are you going to say it in a way that's going to be accepted, in a way that's going to be loved and appreciated? And there is a way to do that. But that's our responsibility as the deliverers of rebuke, is to think ahead, to think in advance. I know this person. I know what their sensitivities are. How do I deliver this message in a way that they will accept it?
You know what else? Levi couldn't have been so bad because he became the tribe of Levi.
That's true, and we'll leave that for the study of a breakneck through the Bible, Vayichi. Right, we did that already, but we'll elaborate another time on it, God willing, maybe next
Rabbi,
year.
can I just say something
Yeah.
about this? I think, in the case of Shimon and Levi, Jacob also was trying to make them better because he knew that they had more potential than to be,
Right.
what's the word? I
Well,
guess, dishonest.
Right. He felt that they were a little deceitful.
Yeah, deceitful, and he knew that they, so by criticizing them,
Now,
what he was
again-
doing was, you're better than this.
Right. I just want.
You think?
Yeah. 100%. And I think I just want to make this note to our friends here on Facebook. We are not criticizing Shimon and Levi. Shimon and Levi were giants, spiritual giants, Jewish giants, and we have absolutely no ability to criticize or to even understand, or to be the dust under their feet.
Yeah.
Right? There are people who believe in Bible criticism is like they have a right to disagree with Abraham. It's like they're little ants, maybe, to the greatness of Abraham, and they're criticizing him. But according to what Yaakov said, their father, he was giving them criticism. Now, it is very important that when we criticize the action and we do not criticize the person. Right? It's much more effective for someone to hear criticism about an action versus them as a person. You're really selfless. You're really selfish, right? You only think about yourself. Or you can say, I know you as being such a giving and loving person. It didn't match that. It seemed to look like it was selfish, right? That it comes off very different. To say, I'm not criticizing you. I'm criticizing the action. It's a very important principle they say with parenting, is that parents should never criticize the child, but criticize the action. You're not a bad child, but this is a bad thing to do. Right? You're good. This is bad. You shouldn't be doing that because you're good. Yes, you had a question.
I think I just more had a statement. I feel that in order to criticize someone, that means that you took the time out of your day or your life or whatever to figure out how to help them. A constructive criticism. You spend your time and efforts not only looking at the situation, but looking at the entire situation, looking at the person, looking at how it would help them. In order to do that, that's a lot more That takes a lot of effort. I mean,
That's
like
right.
if you're actually trying to give somebody constructive criticism, it's like it takes a lot of effort to do it. It's not just something that you just
See, again, right?
As long
that-
as it's done with the right intention.
Yeah.
Exactly, and it is a job. It's an important job, and it's a responsibility, a duty that we're tasked with, as the Jewish people, and our relationship with God and the relationship through the Torah is to understand that we have to help someone who is in need. Essentially, we all have our blind spots. Every single one of us, we have our blind spots. And there are things we don't see. Even if you have a fancy schmancy car that has a blind spot identifier, notifier, you still have something in your blind spot you can't see. It's just telling you that you can't see it. It doesn't show it to you, right? It's still in your blind spot. But when you have someone who loves you and cares about you, they say, "Oh, watch, there's a car there. I see a car there."
Oh, yeah, I love it when people honk at me, because
Right.
hell, you can have an accident.
So yeah, we have to recognize that criticism is a tool for self-perfection. Criticism is a tool, and if we want to attain that perfection, we need to harness that tool. We need to use it properly, both as recipients and as deliverers of criticism. Right? It's not an easy task, and no one ever said it was, but that's our responsibility. Now, again, if you know the person, and you know that the person will not accept, what is your obligation?
Not to say
Keep
it.
your mouth shut and don't say a word. Maybe you'll have to wait a week. Maybe you'll have to wait 2 weeks. Maybe you'll have to wait a month. Maybe you'll have to wait a year. But if you really care about that person, you'll find the right time to say it. You find the right place to say it. It's not always the right time. It's not always the right place. And that's part of our responsibility. But it's a very powerful tool. Not only that, if you have someone you really, 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 really trust, ask them for rebuke. Ask them. Say, you know what?
Yeah.
I trust you. You know me. Tell me something I can do to correct myself, to make myself even better. I do that every year with my rabbi. Every year I regret it. No, I'm just kidding. No. But
He gives you an answer, doesn't
He
he?
gives me an answer, right? But thank God I have a beautiful relationship with my rabbi. I spend a lot of time talking and learning and growing from him. And every year before Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, when it started the days of Elul, I call my rabbi and I say, "Rebbe, I need your help. I want to become a better person. Tell me something. Tell me something I can do to improve myself. You know a lot about me, right? Maybe there's something I can improve." And every year he has something very, very poignant to bring out to the fore. And sometimes it's not pleasant. It hits you right between the eyes. And you're like, "Oh my goodness, no, wait, really? Me? Are you sure? You got the right person?" "Yes, I got the right person. I know who you are." But again, if we really care about our personal growth, perhaps that's the route we should be taking. And we have to be ready for it. Yeah, you know what? I'm not going to turn into a pumpkin if I find out that I have a flaw. Right? We all have flaws. But now that we know about our flaws, it's an important fundamental principle in Mussar. If you don't know your flaws, you will never be able to fix them.
Sure.
And if you don't know your qualities, you will never be able to perfect them. So you have to know your qualities, and you must know your flaws. And if you have difficulty, ask a friend. Ask a friend. It's an important tool. I think it's a very important tool for us to engage with our friends and ask them, tell me, I'm trying to investigate my qualities. I'm trying to, you're not arrogant and you're not a big shot. Don't worry about it. Okay? It's a typical approach, I think, of someone who cares about their character development and becoming a better person. Ask a friend that you love and you care about and that cares about you the same. Say, tell me something that I can perfect myself in. You know me well. What do you like about me? What are my qualities? Sometimes it's very uncomfortable for someone to hear their qualities, but it's important for you to know it. And then when it gets to the flaws, it's even less comfortable to hear it. But you know what? It's important for you to know it. Because if we don't know it, guess what? You won't be fixing it anytime in the near future.
When does too much criticism become a detriment?
Oh, so we have to be very, very careful not to overload.
Especially a child, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because what happens is, it's not only that it overloads, they stop listening.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you criticize someone too much, they'll say, okay, this is just a negative person, and they brush you off, and from now on you lost the opportunity to influence them. It's the same thing with children. I say for every criticism you criticize a child, you have to compliment them 5 times. Remember we said that, right?
Yeah, you said that, yeah.
You compliment them 5 times before you criticize them once. Maybe it needs to be 50 times. I may be off. Right? I try not to criticize my children unless I absolutely need to. Children are pretty intelligent. Children have their own sensors to know right from wrong. Right? So sometimes it's a little bit clogged. You need to open it up. But otherwise, they really know what's right and wrong.
It could be so damaging to them too.
And
The negativity,
if
it's
you
so-
overclutter on a child, so now all they care about is you and not about their own conscience anymore, and then they've lost right and wrong anyway. Yes?
Isn't there something in Proverbs that says the kisses of an enemy are better than the...
Yeah, so it says,
phoniness of a
well,
friend?
it says, I think more accurately, it says that a father who doesn't hit his son, doesn't necessarily with a stick, right, hates his son. Meaning, if you don't care about him enough to give him criticism, right, then you hate him.
No, but there
You
was
see him running
something-
into the street and you don't take action, there's a problem
Well,
with
there
that.
really is a proverb that says something to the effect about an enemy criticizing you is better than a friend
That just
that,
says,
that lies to you. You know, that doesn't.
well, I don't have
Being
that
two-faced or
verse.
something.
I don't have that verse. I will look into it. But I do have a different thing from Proverbs. Proverbs 9:8, chapter 9, verse 8, that says, criticize a wise person and he'll love you. Okay? Because they don't see it as criticism. They see it, wow, you just gave me a ton of food to eat here. Spiritual food to become a better person. Okay? So there's a lot that we can accomplish through criticism to ensure our perfection, the perfection of those around us. If we are giving someone criticism, like Camden reiterated for us, we have to take the time to help them. We have to think about it in advance, consider their situation, approach them in a way that they will be accepting, okay? And then do it for their benefit, okay? So I think we're gonna stop here. There's a lot we covered today, and I think next week we'll continue on this topic. Yes, you had a question
Well,
before.
isn't it also for your benefit too? Because when you criticize somebody about something, then that makes you feel like you better darn well do
Oh,
it.
so that's the thing. Do you have to be perfect in something that you're criticizing someone? Most likely not. I'll tell you why. I have it here on the bottom of my notes. The Talmud states that kol haposel b'mumo posel. Anybody who criticizes someone is flawed in that same area. Okay? Because that's why you saw it. That's why it bothered you, because you're flawed. Like, by the way, many parents say this. Many parents say this. You know what bothers me about my kids? Is that they have the same flaws I do, and I don't want them to have it. Well, guess what? That's why, right? That's why it bothers you. Okay, so we're going to stop here on Facebook. We're going to continue in a minute with the counting of the Omer and the way that is parallel to that counting of the Omer. So we'll stop here. Thank you to all of our friends on Facebook. Thank you for joining us. Please join us again shortly. We'll be back online. And we have another class here tomorrow and every day. And please like and share these videos so that more people can be reached. Thank you, Bobby. And more people can be reached, and we can grow the word of Torah, spread the word of Torah throughout the world. Thank you, and have a lovely evening, everybody.